While on the one hand, this new sexome approach represents a significant reformulation in the conceptualization of core processes of sexual determination and development, it renders the genome a dynamic product of its milieu. It problematizes any essential understanding of sex. It looks, according to this new view, like sexual processes can vary mosaic-like over time from cell to cell and body to body in ways that might obviate talking about a male genome and a female genome. At the same time, in the 20th century linear model of sex, that old model, sex inhered only in sex-specific elements, like the X and the Y, or the genes involved in reproductive organs, such as the testes and ovaries. In this new model, the epigenetic model, the whole body is imbued with networked processes that are sexed. So conceptualizing any process that involves genes or hormones as sexed, this model greatly multiplies the signs and signifiers of biological sex at the molecular level. So now I want to return to this mantra of every cell having a sex. This has emerged as a kind of tagline for women's health activists. It's a consensus view in certain elite women's health circles that every cell has a sex, and it emerges from a very focused research program to develop a sex-based biology over the last decade or so. And you can see how closely tied in this is to the emergence of a genomic and genetic understanding of sex. So the Society for Women's Health Research uses the slogan, "What a difference an X makes," and because sex, double X, matters. So it's very important to them, this new research on the genomics of sex, for emphasizing the need for more funding and so on for women's health research. This has been a concerted effort to develop a field. If you're interested in the sociology of science, it's a good model of how you create conferences, major research statements. You create a whole organization founded in 2007, the Organization for the Study of Sex Differences, and you produce a new journal, Biology of Sex Differences, founded 5 years ago. And this entire program is focused on finding differences. So here, I'll just skip ahead to this report, a major report that they produced out of this effort, an important study, 2001, arguing that sex matters. Here's the sex chromosomes, and that every cell has a sex. It matters in ways we didn't expect. It must matter in ways that we have not even begun to imagine. I won't show this video, but if you're interested more in this paradigm, take a look at some of the videos, What a Difference a Sex Makes by the Society for Women's Health Research. It's a profound affirmation of very traditional stereotypical notions of sex differences. In this video, they go around and interview regular folks about sex differences and that they believe in, and then use this to suggest the need for studying genetic differences between males and females. The most profound impact of all of this activation has been the achievement of a new policy at the National Institutes of Health. It was announced just last year. It's going into implementation now, requiring all researchers funded by the National Institutes of Health to consider sex as a variable in preclinical research. Now, you may know that starting in the 1990s, all researchers who study living whole human beings were required to include both women and men in their research. That was an important breakthrough for women's health. This is a different policy that requires all researchers to consider sex when they're looking at cells in a petri dish. So this is a major policy shift. And so now the question of whether every cell has a sex is not just theoretical, but it has policy implications for actual practices all across the sciences. And we have to ask ourselves, is this a conception of sex that we're comfortable with? Is sex, in other words, omnipresent? Does every cell have a sex? Why do we want to think that way? As we engage this hypothesis, this provocative idea, which is not determined by the data of the world, but by our ways of thinking and our concepts of sex, our pragmatic explanations and platforms that we bring to the life sciences, it's worthwhile to revisit Michel Foucault, the sex theorist, and his admonition that the signs of sex on the body do not speak for themselves as matters of fact outside of history and discourse. That is, there's a way in which the concept of sex is used to create artificial unities that give force to notions of sex differences within politically formed moments. So he says that one way in which these notions of many biological markers of sex are used is to create a fictitious unity as a causal principle, an omnipresent meaning, a secret to be discovered everywhere. Now, there are some good reasons we might want to say every cell has a sex. We might want to bring awareness to sex-related variables so as to expose androcentrism in science. That is, maybe it's a bad thing if most of the cells researchers are using in labs are, in fact, from male donors. We might want to capture the full range of biological diversity by studying cells derived from differently sexed and gendered bodies. We might want to mobilize, and I see this is what's really happening, to mobilize gender justice discourses to compel or direct resources, that is, to create special lines of funding in a competitive research environment, and also to address, of course, women's health disparities. I actually think 3 and 4 are really bad reasons and not true. And I'm happy to be able to just point to my new paper coming out next Tuesday in Proceedings, oh, that's cut off down there, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, stating all the many reasons that I actually oppose this new policy. That is, I do think my own view is the claim that every cell has a sex represents an extreme instance of ascribing sex to the factors and parts of the body in a highly binary and essentialist way, that it contributes to a notion of sex as a ubiquitous or pervasive signifier or sign, and to a conception of bodies as divided in a thoroughgoing way into maleness and femaleness. And so I think it's actually unethical, but I also think it's empirically underdetermined, and it's conceptually unsophisticated, and it's likely to lead to confusion and muddle in the scientific literature. So there you go.